A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I got to sit down with Jennifer from House of Bamboo in Sydney. House of Bamboo are doing some amazing things, not only providing a diverse range of bamboo products including high-end architectural finishes and external decking. Jenn is also leading the charge and trying to fill the timber shortage crisis by lobbying the industry in creating our own industries right here in Australia. Also, as you'll hear, the word sustainability gets thrown a lot around in our industry. Jenn and I talk about the 80-year replacement life of a hardwood timber plantation as opposed to a 6 or 7 year replacement life of bamboo. This is what we are talking about when we are really using the term sustainability. Now let's get into it. Jennifer from House of Bamboo, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thank you.
So we're recording this at your head office and showroom in Botany in Sydney. So really looking forward to having a chat, particularly about your main product, which is bamboo. So before we do hear more about the House of Bamboo, which I love the name of, by the way, I always like to take our guests back in history and find out about where they grew up, how they got into their industry. So can you take us back, please, Jenn, and tell us the story?
That far back?
As far as you'd love to go.
Okay, all right. So I've always grown up in Sydney, and my parents were immigrants. So one was from Holland and one was from Hungary, and they met here in Australia and got married and blah, blah, blah. And my father was a medical engineer, and he used to travel and work in Southeast Asia for most of my growing up life. And in the process of spending a lot of time in Southeast Asia, he used to travel back to Australia and wonder why Australians weren't using building materials that were more conducive to the climate that we had here. He felt that we were using a lot of European building materials, and he thought, having spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia, that we should be adopting more of their type of building materials that were more suitable to tropical type climates and stuff like that. Hence, he started House of Bamboo in 1972 purely as a hobby on the side, and started to bring in materials in interiors that were like your traditional woven bamboo panels and wallpapers and things like that. And that was the beginning of House of Bamboo. And he did it out of he loved this country. He immigrated here because he thought it was a land of opportunity and this space and the climate. And so hence he started to just bring in some materials and promote them as, Southeast Asian materials that were suitable to an Australian climate. And that's how House of Bamboo started.
When your father was working and traveling over to Southeast Asia, like how did he connect with people to sort of say, look, I really like what you're doing and I see an opportunity in Australia for your product?
Well, he was quite the entrepreneur. So I know in his travels he was a very good people person, and he would have just made connections and seen things and then gone into villages, and he was a real believer in supporting villages and creating income streams for them, and he loved the materials. So he got involved by just networking and finding the core people that were, making the things. And in those days, it was very village orientated, cottage industry. So he just made those connections, which some still exist today. And I now work with the children of those people.
Multi-generational. That's great.
So it's fantastic.
You mentioned earlier that your father, he started off with sort of, I guess, would I call it the lightweight kind of products, like the wallpapers and the screens that you mentioned.
And the wall covering. So things for internal, decoration, if you like, and interiors that you would create. You create theming, like I call it theming, where you wanted to recreate the resorts that you'd been in when you went over and travelled, so that when you came back, you could feel like you were still, overseas or at that resort or on the water or stuff like that. The traditional sort of Bali style or Santorini style or all those sort of styles.
So on that, for the people listening to this and I think, look, Southeast Asia, what sort of countries or places are we talking about? Which actual countries are we referring to there?
So Vietnam, the Philippines at the time, Korea, China of late, but really it was mainly Philippines, Korea, Vietnam were the main areas of where my father had travelled and worked in.
Now, bamboo is a thoroughly interesting product. I've sort of had a little bit of experience with it over the years, and it blew my mind finding out that bamboo, like there are some species of bamboo that can grow almost a meter every 24 hours, which is insane, isn't it?
It is insane, and we've actually got some growing here in our showroom that was doing exactly that. It's just amazing. So it tends to grow, to have its full. It only grows about once a year, maybe twice a year when it shoots, and then when it does shoot, it'll complete its whole height within a month to 6 weeks. So you can see something go 6 meters, 8 meters, in around about 6 weeks. Basically, it's how it grows. There's two types of bamboo. There's a running bamboo, which all the landscapers and people hate because it's the one that shows up everywhere, right? And basically that means it has a root system that runs horizontally, and then just goes on and on and on and on. So that's called a running bamboo, and you can't normally control it. And then there's a clumping bamboo, which is it restricts itself in its growth to about a root system of 1 metre by 1 metre. And it's a rhizome system. So you have both, and a lot of landscapers now are using the clumping bamboo because they're beautiful bamboos, but they won't run and become uncontrollable. Yeah, or you've got the running bamboo, which you should always contain. So both of those are just two different types of species, and different climates will adhere better to different sorts. So a lot of the construction materials that we use in bamboo tend to be running bamboos because there's ample supply, although in South America and stuff they tend to use clumping bamboos. So you've got both options. There's over 1,000 species of different types of bamboos, some that we use to eat for edible shoots, others that we use for hedging and screening, for soil erosion, some for construction, some for pulp, clothing. So there's quite a variety of different uses and different types of bamboos that we use for different applications.
Yeah, it's such a broad use and so important, particularly in recent conditions where there's a bit of a timber crisis emerging in the construction industry, which has been happening and going on for a while now. And I guess the beauty of bamboo is the speed and relatively ease of being able to grow it and mass produce it.
Yeah.
So can you sort of, I guess, shed some light on that sort of emerging trend with bamboo?
Yeah, sure. So the key, the word sustainability is being used quite exhaustively at the moment. Sometimes a little bit overused, but the key aspect of bamboo is its harvest cycle, and that is the main reason it is one of the most sustainable natural building materials. So when we harvest bamboo, ideally for construction, we want to harvest it between the ages of 5 to 7 years, because that's when we know that the cell structure is at its optimal within the bamboo plant itself, and it'll provide the most strength for when we remanufacture that material. So if you compare that to oak's being specified a lot at the moment with architects and stuff like that. So the harvest cycle for oak is generally 80 years. So when you think about it, if you cut down a forest, and even if we have the reforestation program going, it's still an 80-year cycle before you can reuse the material that's produced. And with bamboo, it's 5 to 7 years. So you can continue to produce material, you can continue to supply material, you keep economies going. And I think another key factor in it is that, we don't talk a lot about when you do cut down forests, what happens to all the animal life and the biodiversity that exists there? They get displaced. And the longer it takes to regrow that forest, the longer they're displaced, and where are they all going? Not the fires that we had in Australia, the terrible fires, they destroyed a large percentage of our pine forests. And we're looking at 10 to 15 years before we can even start to establish an industry from that, which has contributed to our timber shortage. So bamboo can really offer a solution, not only from supplying a material that we can use in construction, but it also is a fantastic plant to help with soil erosion and to restore our land. So, there's so many different benefits that we can establish for it, and the thing is, it's a grass, it's not a timber. So it falls under a whole lot of different criteria, but it's not really recognised at the moment. That's the difficulty we have. But it's a fantastic plant, and we can continue to supply the needs that we have and can help with the housing, shortages and provide building materials in that regard. And because of its short harvest cycle, it really makes sense. It's like a bit of a no-brainer about why aren't we, growing more bamboo and utilising it.
That's right. Now, do we produce bamboo in Australia anywhere, like up in the sort of the northern states?
So we don't actually have a bamboo manufacturing industry in Australia. So I'm working hard with a guy at Bamboo Australia. So we've got something called the Bamboo Project, and we're looking to establish an industry here in Australia. And there's more of a calling for it now, even with our, history. So there's about 65 approximately plantations in Australia, but they're not used for commercial purposes. They're just simply growing the plants. So we can establish a bamboo industry here. We've got climate that suits all different types of bamboos. There is an Australian bamboo, 2 or 3 species that exist in the Northern Territory. But there's definitely scope for us to be able to grow bamboo in Australia and produce it so that we can then start to make materials for construction, but we can also do it for, clothing and charcoal and pulp. So, we're working at why don't we and how can we? So they're the things, and, we've been working really hard towards that, and definitely there's some interest now in that area. And, at the same time, we can restore our land. So, there's so many benefits.
Yeah, you mentioned about soil erosion. So we were earlier discussing about, I guess, what happens below the soil. So I'm imagining that the benefits of that are because it can obviously grow and stabilise that hard structure beneath the surface and keep the subsoil area solid and intact.
Yeah, so bamboo's got a rhizome root system. So when you cut it, it just regrows. So you don't actually have to replant it, which is a really key aspect. 2, the rhizome root system exists under the soil, and a lot of our desertification and stuff that's happening in Australia is, we cut the forests down, for instance, and then it doesn't regrow, and then the soil loses its nutrients and the carbon store and everything, and then it just becomes non-usable, basically. And if you can use a rhizome system that regrows itself, then we keep the nutrients in the ground and we keep the soil, because all the key elements for vegetation and stuff are held in your soil. So soil is your key aspect. And by having a rhizome system that binds it and holds it together, retains the carbon, retains the nutrients, it keeps the soil very healthy. And that's what is going to restore our land.
Yeah, look, it's interesting stuff. And one of the, I guess, key products that I wanted to discuss with you today, because I'm seeing this is a bit of an emerging trend, and I know you're probably going to say it's been around for a while, but particularly in regard to timber bamboo, or I keep saying timber bamboo decking, but it's basically bamboo decking.
Yeah, we call it timber bamboo so people notice it.
Yeah.
If you go bamboo decking, everybody goes, what's that? Yeah, there's definitely bamboo decking that's around that's really great. We're a big believer of not using plastics. We have a bamboo decking that is just compressed bamboo with phenolic resin in it, and it's very dense because it's compressed, so it's harder than hardwood, and it's all bamboo, 87% bamboo. So it's great for the environment. It's very hardy and available, to use as an alternate to hardwoods and softwoods that are becoming more and more difficult to source.
Yeah, and rare, and like you said, when they're taking 80 years in a replacement life cycle sense. That's quite a long time. So with your bamboo product, do you import that and manufacture it here in Botany, or do you import it already built like that?
Yeah, so nearly all our products are manufactured overseas. So because we don't have an industry here. At this stage, everything gets designed here in some of our screening. The decking is made, we don't design the decking's made overseas. And we work with a company called Dasso, and they produce a very high and high quality bamboo decking product that we then import at the moment. Obviously, we want to eventually have an industry here where we can produce and do it ourselves in Australia. So that's really what we're working towards. But at the moment, everything that's made out of bamboo that's engineered comes from overseas, whether it's Vietnam, India, China or whatever, because we don't have an industry here.
Yeah, look, I'm really excited about these kinds of stories because I'm already seeing it in our steel industry. There's a couple of exciting things going on there. There's obviously with our lumber or timber industry as well, there's some pretty exciting things going on there as well. So I think, if there's been one big shift that's made us sort of reassess and reconsider what we're about and what we can do, it's being sustainable in a sense of producing things here in our home soil and creating an industry. And it takes leaders in the industry like yourself who are recognizing that and stepping up and think, well, I'm really passionate about my product. Why not? Why not start producing it here or look for alternatives to, I guess, fix these supply chain issues that we're seeing?
Yeah, 100%, and I think considering the environment and stuff, I think we've got such really, I'm encouraged by the youth and their ability to produce and think outside the box and be innovative in finding solutions, because we've got the solutions. We can do things and create things that are not only the right materials for our environment, but also we can do it here in Australia. And it's a wake-up call for all of us to say, hey, how do we find the solutions here and make that possible? And I'm really encouraged by what we can do. And it has made us all stop and ask those questions. And I think that they're relevant questions. And I think, I think it's fantastic that, we're in the process of being able to do that here, which is very, very encouraging.
Yeah, like I said, exciting times. Now, if you could sort of pick an emerging product or a favourite product of yours, what's sort of hot on the list there?
Well, I love my engineered bamboo. So bamboo's CLT timbers are becoming more and more popular now for a number of reasons. Bamboo's always been a laminated product because of the nature of it. It's a pole with a little bit of, material on the external part. So you have to, strip it and laminate it to be able to create a product. But we've been working really hard on the resins that we use to create those laminated products. So many years ago, lots of the resins had formaldehyde in them and they had emissions that were, probably not safe. And that was to do with plywoods and everything in all types of timber products and bamboo products. But, we've come a long way in that. And now the key with all these laminated products is the resins that we use to make sure that they're healthy and safe for everybody. And we're working a lot with our bioglues where we don't even use anything, no formaldehyde, because formaldehyde's a very good binding agent, so it holds the materials together. So we've been doing a lot of work in that area, and and we're proud to say that all our engineered laminated materials work extremely well in the Australian climate and work well externally, because I concentrate on external applications. Once you've got the formula right, then you can make anything. So the key now is that we do a lot of work around designing beautiful products and screening and battening, etc., and then be able to provide off-the-shelf products for people who have designs and they want to be able to apply themselves in a simple modular system. And then we also do lots of bespoke stuff. It's a really fantastic, exciting area where we've got an alternate source that's anything you can do in timber, you can do in bamboo now, is what I tell everybody. So the door's open to really provide solutions that help with the timber shortage, because there isn't a bamboo shortage, and there probably won't ever be a bamboo shortage because of the nature of the plant. And we can now provide solutions as an alternate choice to timber, and a far more sustainable choice to timber. So we can create new industries. And, I always say we don't have to replace something. We can just create a new one, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. And then we can start to develop that. So we can do structural timbers, we can do cladding materials, flooring, decking, anything, anything. The world's the oyster, as they say.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, the practicality of multi-use in construction. We're not talking about to be fair, some people, particularly in the older days, used to like have a bit of a perception of what bamboo looks like, whether it's some sort of screen but you guys are leading the pack in that you've got bamboo that looks and feels and wears just like any other form of timber. It's the product that you're able to grow sustainably and bring onto the market in so many different uses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I came to House of Bamboo, my father was still doing the tiki bars and the bamboo rod screens and stuff. And, and there's still a place for that, But when I came in, my background's architecture, so I did architecture. So when I came in, and then I started to investigate and learn about the technologies now available and the work that was done in manufacturing. It opened my eyes and went, my gosh, there's just a whole nother world that I wasn't aware of. And so I sort of developed an understanding and did a lot of work and study in that area, and then realised that we can produce bamboo in a contemporary form, with a contemporary feel and a contemporary look to it, and it can be an alternate product to timber. It has the strength, it has the tensile strength, the compressive strength of concrete. It can perform better than any of the softwoods, comparable to the hardwoods. It's sustainable. We're not going to have a shortage of it. And it became really exciting for me. So the more I got to learn about it, the more I realised the capabilities of it. And then, we've got furniture we're making out of it now. It's just beautiful. And that opened my door. And so House of Bamboo does do still the traditional bamboo poles and Bali style looking Santorini looks, but it now also provides contemporary solutions for modern architecture. Because, that's the whole key with innovation, isn't it? You have to break the boundaries, and everybody's in this little box, and you've got to say, no, but there's another box now. We've got to break that box. We're moving to different things. And I think that's generally with everything now. People are becoming so much more innovative and, looking for solutions that work for, a better future.
Okay, Jen, so tell me about your Hayman Island project. It's a bit of an interesting project, and people will be able to go online and see some of these amazing photographs. So tell us about that project.
So we were approached by the interiors architect, KY Designs, Christine Yates, and she wanted to specify bamboo because of its sustainability. So we worked with her in bespoking some really big louvers that were 100 by 50 in size, and most of our products were about 5 metres in length. So we were doing huge battens and beams that were 5 metres in length as one piece. And she designed some louvers and some battens that were for the ceiling and for the day spa at Hayman Island. It was for a big rebuild, and the project took quite a few months for us to get the design right and the manufacturing. And then we manufactured and supplied that whole project in that area, and they look fantastic. So there's some images on our website of the battens and the louvers in the day spa. And because it was a wellness centre, we do now, but it was all healthy. So we got, platinum rating on all our stuff, which means that we've got the highest level that you can for a natural material. And it ticks all the boxes from Green Star and health rating. We're all platinum. So it became a really exciting project for us. And it was the first one of this new technology we had with the resins and binding the bamboo together and stuff. And it looked beautiful. And it was
great setting up there at Hayman Island too.
I know. I never got the site visits though.
Oh, well, I'm sure after listening to this show, they'll reach out and maybe give you a free weekend or something.
Yeah, love it.
What about, I have one question for you about, I guess, the external application. So if I'm a carpenter or a builder and I'm looking at utilizing House of Bamboo's product on decking or external battens, like you just mentioned earlier with louver blades and things like that, do I apply a particular product to the bamboo, or do I apply normal products? How does that work?
So it's exactly like timber. So for an external application, we would always recommend you put an oil or a coating on it, mainly for the UV really, because it's a natural product. So to a large extent, we bring in our materials already with an oil on it, and we tend to use, although any of them can work, but we tend to use a Woker oil, which is a Danish oil with different tints. So we bring a lot of our stuff in already pre-oiled to save the builder or the carpenter on site to having to do that. But it performs like a timber would. So over time, it will grey off. It's a slightly lighter greying. And our recommendation is to re-oil every 18 months or so. I mean, it always depends on the orientation and where it's facing and et cetera, because otherwise it'll grey off to a light grey and just like timber does.
So same products, like same, whether it's water-based product or oil-based.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep, exactly the same.
And also, Jen, you've got this amazing, impressive showroom here in Botany. So if people want to check it out, they can come down here and check out your amazing, diverse range of products. So you guys open over the Christmas period?
We are. Our showroom's just been renovated into a more contemporary look, so everybody can walk in and go, "Wow, I can't believe this is all bamboo." And that was what we were hoping to achieve. And so, we're open. We're closing on the 22nd of December, but we are going to open our showroom on the 29th, 30th, and 31st, and then we're all back on board on the 4th.
Well, that's great. It's a perfect time of year when people have a bit more time and there's less traffic on the road. They can drive down here to Botany and see your impressive showroom. So, Jen from House of Bamboo, it's been really nice to sit here and talk to you, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And if people want to check out House of Bamboo's products, what's the best way to go about it?
Just get on our website. So it's just houseofbamboo.com.au. You can look at the commercial projects, and you can also have a look at the residential projects.
Look, amazing product. Well done. Love the name too. So
thank you.
Dad obviously had great foresight back then in the 70s to think of a cool name, and love the name. So
awesome.
And excellent job in getting behind the industry, trying to come up with ways of helping fight the industry. You can always take the lazy adopted view or accept what's out there, or it can take leaders like yourself who are trying to genuinely lobby ways of filling gaps, fighting shortages and supply chain issues, and continually trying to improve the industry as a whole. So can't thank you enough for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for recognising it, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with myself and Jennifer from House of Bamboo. And I'd certainly encourage you all to check out their incredible showroom in Botany if you can get there, or go online and check out their Instagram. As usual, please check out our own Instagram and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.